Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the final installment of the three-part webinar series for this year's AIAC September Sports Week 2022. Our session for today is titled In Conversation with Pro Bono Sports Counsels. I am Nadira Shahmi, and I am a Chief Counsel with the Asian International Arbitration Center. Today, we have with us two very practiced lawyers in the area of sports law and sports arbitration. As brief introduction, we have our first speaker, Richard Wee. Richard graduated with a Bachelor of Law honors from the University of London in 1996 and completed his CLP in 1998 and was admitted as an advocate and solicitor of the High Court of Malaya in 1999. Believing in professional development, Richard continues to acquire new skills and knowledge and holds a certificate from the Southeast Asia Regional Anti-Doping Organization, IRADO, 2018, for result management for anti-doping. In 2016, Richard also obtained the Certificate of Sports Arbitration from AIAC, a qualification which is a preparatory step towards appointment as a sports arbitrator. In 2019, FIFA and Football Association of Malaysia appointed Richard to the Appeals Committee of the National Disputes Resolution Chambers, and Richard continues to be a member of the NDRC in 2021 and 2022. In 2020, the Minister of Youth and Sports appointed Richard to the advisory panel of experts. In 2020, the National Sports Institute appointed Richard as a committee member of the Sports Technology Research and Development Funding Committee. And in 2021, the Union Cyclists International appointed Richard as a member of the Disciplinary Commission and the UCI Arbitral Board, respectively. Our second speaker for today is Susanah. Susanah read law at the University of Sydney, Australia, and graduated with a double degree in commerce and in law. In October 2011, she was admitted as an advocate and solicitor of the High Court in Malaya, and she commenced her legal career at one of the largest firms in Malaysia before her passion for sports law led her to further her studies at the Instituto Superior de Derecho y Economía in Madrid, where she graduated with a master's in international sports law. Susanah's experience includes a stint in UK Sport London and at the AFC as a legal intern before she joined Pitching Sports, the first specialist international sports regulation and business firm in the Asia Pacific region. Susanah also appears as co-counsel before the Court of Arbitration for Sports in Lausanne and the AFC Disciplinary and Ethics Committee in Malaysia. She has advised various international and local clients on matters relating to international sporting disputes, anti-doping, ethics, and regulatory framework. In February of 2019, the Malaysian Weightlifting Federation appointed Susanah as an executive board member and legal advisor. In October of 2019, the International Ice Hockey Federation appointed Susanah as a pro bono counsel. Susanah has also provided legal support to the doping panel and the ethics committee of the Badminton World Federation in cases relating to doping and match fixing, and currently is the legal secretary to the independent hearing panel of the BWF. In November 2021, Susanah was also appointed as the deputy chairperson to the Olympic Council Malaysia Legal Advisory Rules and Discipline Committee. Welcome, Richard and Susanah, to today's interview.
Thank you very much.
So just to, our first question will be a bit general, more of an introduction. Can you share a little bit with us about what exactly sports pro bono work encompasses? Who are the parties you represent or engage with, and what kind of work does this entail exactly? I think we can start with Richard for this one.
Oh, thank you. Firstly, much obliged to AIAC for having Susanah and I on board today. It's always nice to share our views, especially with AIAC. For a long time, I've collaborated with then known as KLRCA for the growth and development of sports law. So much obliged for having me on board. And then if you see some shadows moving around my logo here, it's because there's a cat here, so don't panic. It's not the Hungry Ghost Festival, there's a cat. So welcome aboard to this session, and thank you for those who are logged on to hear the views of Susanah and I. Much obliged. The question was actually to what exactly is sports pro bono work encompass, right?
Yes,
If I'm not mistaken, Nadira, that was a question.
yes.
Now, actually, Nadira is more of it's hard for me, from my angle, hard for me to put a specific area that these are the one we do for pro bono. Actually, doesn't work that way. It's basically at any given time when there's any sports related clients who may come to us, or they're not just clients, they are personalities or people involved in sports like the athletes. They may seek assistance and guidance, and that's where we step in and provide pro bono advice. Not everything is about fees. Sometimes some clients, so some leads, they just would like to get some guidance. And then there's also associations, events where we offer ideas and advice. I think the idea is to walk into the discussion with empathy and with the idea of trying to help. Um, it's an area which require much guidance. Many people still do not understand sports law. Many people look at it as just it's just contract. Some lawyers will say that, or some people may say that, but actually it's a lot more than that. So that's why it's important for sports lawyers who to share knowledge, to go in, as I repeat the word, with empathy and with the desire to try and assist. So usually it works like that, to be at the right time, the right place, to give advice, give comment. Perhaps Susanah can share her personal views, but for me, it's generally about that. It's a bit difficult to give specific views because many times have happened. So hard to give specific examples, but yeah, it's about that.
Thank you, Richard. I think from that, the takeaway is that it's not limited to just individuals. It's also very much engaging with associations and committees and advising larger federations. Susanah, who are the parties? Some examples of the parties you engage, or what kind of work you do when it comes to pro bono work?
Similarly with Richard, it really depends on when you sit at a committee, then generally it's giving back to the sports itself. So it's usually done on a pro bono basis, but they might give you some allowance for travel or stuff like that. So you can do pro bono work for federations, you can do pro bono work for associations, clubs, or even individuals. So I can't, to me, when a client or a potential client approaches me, and if it's an individual and the person tells me that, look, I'm having some financial difficulties or something, like during the COVID time, there was a few local players that were not getting salary, or there was arbitrary salary cut and all. And when you weigh everything and you see, they are already in that position, I personally do not feel inclined to bill. So it's on a case-by-case basis, but generally, yeah, I can't pinpoint also. There's no one particular, like, I only do pro bono work for athletes or individuals, like what Richard said, it's a service we give back to the sports. So it can range from associations to private individuals.
All right, thank you both. I think that sets the general understanding that sports pro bono is definitely not something that is limited to only individuals and encompasses the whole range of the sporting industry. Our second question today is, beyond the efforts of individual sports lawyers like yourself, are there any organizations that offer pro bono lawyer services or pro bono representations and advisory services to athletes in Malaysia? I think we can start with Susanah on this one.
I'm not too sure actually about this, because I know, like, if it's for just legal services, you have legal aid under the Bar Council, but I'm not so aware with regards to specific sports organization that offers pro bono services in Malaysia to athletes. So yeah, this I think Richard will probably know better.
Richard?
Yeah, thanks. Actually, Nadira, Susanah is not far from the assertion, because there is at the moment no one specific body or even specific bodies who offer pro bono services. In fact, the other way around, lawyers like, for example, like Susanah, she volunteered in OCM to sit in the legal department or legal committee to offer pro bono advice. I think to some extent you can start with the Bar Council. There's a legal aid center there. There isn't any specific sports lawyers there, but if a person who qualify for the assistant, as you know, you need to be at a certain means test, a certain remuneration level in order to qualify for the free legal advice. Once you pass the test, the bar may look for people like Susanah and me. Say, look, no, there is this client. Can you help? So then that is one. That's one. But outside Malaysia, Nadira, there's a few. I know for a fact, like there are some international organizations, and even Susanah herself is appointed to be a pro bono lawyer. There are many international federations which have their own specific committee or specific task force where those lawyers are pro bono offering services, blah, blah, blah. So they are in Malaysia. I think most lawyers who are doing pro bono services for sports are doing it on our own services.
All right. I think that I guess sports law in Malaysia is still still very much a growing industry, and there's still room left to provide these kinds of services within the industry. And I look forward to seeing where the industry grows in the next 10, 15 years as well. Our next question is, why do you think it's important for institutions like Sports Resolution and the International Council for Arbitration for Sports, AIAC, to provide access to justice for athletes who might not otherwise have the financial means to pursue a claim? I think we can start with Richard on this one.
No, in fact, no, Nadira, I apologize. I would like to propose Susanah to try this first, because she is, unlike me, she's doing a lot more services at ICAS, and I think she will provide a more in-depth opinion. May I invite you instead, Susanah? Please, yeah.
Okay, I don't provide services to ICAS.
Sorry, I mean in that area.
No, just in case, because yeah, just to clarify, they at CAS there is a legal aid, a special legal aid segment where, just like how Malaysia Bar Council has the legal aid, you've got to qualify for it. So you got to show that you have no means and all. I think it's important because as an athlete, I mean, a few athletes make it big, okay? First, there's only the majority of them may not have such financial means, and appeal against a decision or just going to CAS itself, it is quite expensive, discounting even your lawyer's fees, the cost of the whole procedure itself. So it's, to me, it is, and CAS listens to an appeal, and that will be your final instance, is like our federal court already. So if you, I mean, yes, you can appeal to the Swiss Federal Tribunal, but chances of people going there, it's very, very low because of the fees, and there's only 5 grounds to attack a CAS decision, so it's also almost impossible. So that's why it's important to allow the athlete to have an independent third party listening and deciding on your appeal, because usually the first instance for disciplinary cases or whatever cases is done within the sports that the athlete participates itself. So it's always good to have another body overseeing the decision, and that's why it is, to me, I feel it is important that such athletes have an access to this independent third party. And if money is an issue, then it is only right that they be provided some means to assist in. Obviously, there are athletes who are just doing it frivolously, and that's why you need to skim out these athletes from the pool, because you do not want to waste your resources on these athletes when you can help the others who really have a meaningful defense or a meaningful claim. So yeah.
All right, thank you, Susanna. We see that it's definitely advantages to the larger sports industry that CAS exists as a almost an overseeing authority for how decisions take place in a lot of federations. And it's also good to learn that there is legal aid within CAS itself and within ICAS that provides assistance to athletes that need it. I think following up on that question as well is taking into consideration the cost of a CAS arbitration. It's not small, and especially from countries like Malaysia, the currency exchange can be difficult. Is arbitration actually a viable option, at least financially, for the vast majority of athletes? Susanna?
Arbitration, are we talking about first instance or are we talking about the appeal?
I think we can talk about both. And like in the first instance, is it a viable option for athletes?
More often than not, if it's a contractual dispute, like a football contractual dispute, you will go through the sports itself, like you will go through FIFA's judicial system, or FAM if it's a national dispute. But if you're talking about parties outside, like the sports itself will have regulations on who they will have jurisdiction over. And if you are outside this pool of parties before the sports within the regulations, then chances of your contract having a arbitration clause is high, and then you will go to CAS at first instance. In cases like that, I personally feel it's not such a viable option, depending on the quantum of your claim and depending on your financial standing. Because, even an ordinary arbitration before CAS is very expensive. I think it's similar with having a ordinary arbitration at the AIAC also, or at least back then at the KLRCA. When I was in practice, I had an ordinary arbitration and the cost wasn't anyhow. It was actually quite high. And if you are going at an appeal level, you really have no choice, because most, if not all, the sports, I think, safe to say, I would believe that all sports would have a clause that the appeal will go to CAS. So you are really bound by it. You don't have a choice.
I tend to agree, Nadira. It's quite. Sorry, Susanna.
No.
Okay. So I just wanted to echo Susanna, because in my practice, with the few cases that I came to us to refer to CAS, it is quite quite forbidden lah. The fees can be the main factor deterring someone to proceed. But of course, if the clause have the relevant arbitration clause, then you have no choice. You have to go to arbitration. And if you don't represent yourself or you don't appear, then you'll forfeit. So it can be quite tough.
Yeah, I can imagine that, especially lawyers taking on these kinds of things. It's not easy to do this on a pro bono basis, not only because of your own lawyer fees, but also because considering the cost of CAS arbitration. Even arbitration in Malaysia, the cost is already quite up there. I can only imagine what the currency rate would affect.
Yeah, perhaps I would suggest that, I mean, other than the questions that you pose, I think it's time for us to look at a proper sports tribunal. Let's start with Malaysia first, right? So the Sports Development Act was recently amended about 4 years ago. It was supposed to include a new sports dispute tribunal, but I need to understand at the very last minute, it was changed to Sports Dispute Committee. And being a practicing lawyer in Malaysia, I've been waiting for that committee to start so that we can refer cases to. Though I understand the sports commissioner in Malaysia is trying to start that. I wouldn't be surprised if Susanna and I are approached to become members of the committee to decide. On the other side of the coin, I can share with you, Nadira, that a few years ago, I was very honored to be appointed by a particular state government in Malaysia to draft what was then would have been the first ever the enactment of the law for the first ever esports tribunal. That too I did partially pro bono. We were paid for our traveling to the state, but the work was free. Unfortunately, that state government fell. As you know, Malaysia, we've been changing government every now and then.
Yeah.
So it was quite sad because had that tribunal been started, even though it's for esports, it would have been the founding basis of a state-funded tribunal. You know, and with a strong organization like AIAC, we already have a ready-made dispute resolution body like AIAC. Then it would be ideal to appoint AIAC to run this, eventually go to federal tribunal, even though it's esports, but I was hoping that it will eventually grow to sports. That was my personal, you know, we try on our own accord, try to push the boundaries and make things better for the country. But politics got into the way. Hopefully, this will be revisited one day, and then that may come into true enactment one day.
Yeah.
But that's sorry to interrupt, but that's
No worries.
one thing that I'm not too sure how it would tie up on an international basis though, because on the one hand you have, like for example, football, you have FIFA statute requiring an appeal to be before CAS, and at a national level, as a member association, you are required to reflect that particular article, and hence if there are any appeals, it should go to CAS and not locally, like to the tribunal, whatever tribunal they established. So I'm not too sure on an international basis how this would actually pan out. Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see.
It'll be tough, Susanah, because you're spot on. When we drafted this enactment in 2018, that's four years ago, we had this issue, but esports, as you know, is still very uncharted. So, and even CAS have not really touched on esports yet. So hence we started on esports. But in my view, if we can get a tribunal which is affordable, run by the state, other than the ongoing internal tribunals run by the association, this tribunal may come into existence. That's number one. And of course, as you know, Susanah, recently the sports commissioner came up with rules for internal dispute and dispute committee. They set up with rules under the Sports Development Act. So it looks like the PJS, the sports commissioner, is going to go towards self-regulated. So like you said, football will run their own event, their own dispute committee, and then they have to apply this particular rule. So of course, what I said was about 4 years ago. Since then, things have changed a little bit. But ideally, I would have preferred a national funded dispute committee, dispute tribunal, which would make things a bit more affordable, especially for young athletes who can't afford to go to Switzerland. You know, so something to work out. But Susanah is on point because of the, you know why, Nadira? The sports is like people don't realize that sports is like an independent country, you know. Yeah, so like FIFA is like a country on its own. There is from FIFA, AFC, and to some extent AFF, and then FM. So there's this governing body. So sports law, the three main things is governance, doping, and to some extent rules on the field of play and off the field of play. These are three things we normally read. So governance is an important issue. So that's why once you have governance like that, and you have a tribunal under the government, we may have a problem because the two don't match eye to eye. But it's something the government, in my view, have to log on. They have to do something about it.
I think it's really interesting that you brought this up because AIAC was also consulted on when it came to amendments to the SDA. And one of the struggles we had, like Susanah pointed out, was the fact that there is already a system in place. And so trying to reintegrate an independent, a government-funded tribunal was very much a struggle that we still have not resolved because there has not been an amendment yet. It's still very much in the works. It's still something that we are looking into finding a way that will integrate seamlessly. It might be the case that there's no solution yet, but hopefully in the near future, the government start pushing for this project again and try to find a way to reintegrate this system into what we already have in our existing sports dispute resolution mechanism. Thank you again for bringing that up.
Question.
Yes, but next question. We'll delve a little bit into your respective individual experiences. I wanted to start with Susanah. Susanah, recently you were appointed as the Deputy Chairperson to the OCM Legal Advisory Rules and Discipline Committee. Can you share a little bit on your involvement in that?
Yeah, sure. So generally, the committee provides support to the OCM in terms of legal questions that they throw to us. So, for example, I was just recently appointed. So in that short span of time, we have dealt with issues of even the OCM's constitution, relooking it, and then certain MOUs that they were signing with another country, with one of its members. And then the eligibility of certain national governing body to participate in certain competitions, suspension and removal of members, of OCM members. So these are the stuff that we are consulted upon now.
I see it's a very big range, understandably so, because OCM oversees a lot of ongoing.
Correct.
Our next question is more specific to the Badminton World Federation. You also provide legal support to the doping panel and ethics panel of the Badminton World Federation in cases relating to doping and match fixing, and currently serve as the legal secretary to the independent hearing panel of the Badminton World Federation. Can you talk us through what handling a case as a legal secretary to the BWF IHP looks like, and how it differs slightly from work with the OCM?
Okay, so as the legal secretary, it's quite administrative, to be honest. So I would be the liaison person between the parties and the IHP, and also sometimes with BWF. So then I would get instructions from the panel, then I'll notify the parties, and then postman, glorified postman term. And then I will compile all the pleadings and all into a file, give it to the IHP, then we'll set down the hearing date, like we have an upcoming hearing on the 24th. And then I will just sit in the hearing, give my 2 cents of the case, and then do any legal research if need be. And that's it.
It's essentially a legal advisor for the BWF. And
the BWF has their own legal advisor, so I'm actually a neutral party. Because they can't have someone from the BWF. Similarly, like the independent hearing panel, they are all also independently appointed, and they have no ties with the BWF. So BWF has their own legal counsel, and they have their own external lawyers also, if they are prosecuting the case or if they are being, a party in the case. And so the IHP and me, we are out of the BWF system. We are like, the IHP is the hearing body for BWF. So yeah, and I answer up to BWF, like I'm appointed by them, but then I have no ties with them. I don't receive money from them. I don't, it's totally neutral. So yeah.
Understood. Okay. Completely new system to a lot of people, I understand. So the way it works is that you're appointed by BWF, but you are an independent party, independent third party who helps liaise with the IHP.
Yes.
Nadira.
I will answer up to the IHP.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I was about to say, Nadira, see what Susanah just explained is something I think even Susanah and I tried to explain to other people outside the world, that sports judicial body is not similar to the normal court hearing. It's very different, and you really need to understand it in order to practice. Sometimes I find it quite hilarious. Sometimes some lawyers will go around and say that I'm a sports lawyer. So when I have a chat with him or her about this, like what Susanah is saying, they don't understand. So I'm wondering what sports are they doing. So people need to understand that, for example, with regards to the judicial system, really sports is have its own rules, own concept, own jurisprudence. You need to understand it in order to give services in the area.
Absolutely. And I think later on, definitely we have a question regarding how best to integrate yourself into the sports industry, because it is so different from a lot of other industries. But I think first we'll go into a little bit into Richard's experience. So Richard, I noticed that both the Football Association of Malaysia as well as FIFA has appointed you to be part of the appeals committee of the National Disputes Resolution Chambers, NDRC. Can you share with us your role as part of the appeals committee and what this work entails?
Okay, thanks, Sandra. Just a slight refinement of the question. Okay. I am not appointed by FIFA and FAM. The NDRC is a dispute resolution committee for players' contracts, particularly for football, and this mechanism was created by FIFA. In fact, they came to Malaysia a few times to brief us on how to run this organization. So it's called FIFA NDRC. Okay. But because we are in Malaysia, so it's parked in Malaysia. And I sit in the appeals committee. Now, truth be told, Nadira, I have not had any case coming to me yet. So I don't know whether it's good or bad. So I suppose there's either no dispute reaching the appeals committee, or nobody's using us. I'm not sure about that yet. But we've been trained to go through contracts, agreements, to come up with a certain decision based on the agreements. I was, of course, recommended by PFAM. So there are, in Malaysia, there are 3 stakeholders. One is, of course, Football Association of Malaysia. The other one is MFL, and then the third one is a PFAM. I think, Susanah, you're also in NDRC, right, Susanah? Are you a member? Oh, no, okay. Sorry. So, oh yeah, you're sitting there. Okay. Then, so I was recommended by PFAM. So I go in on the basis as if I am for PFAM. But when we decide, we have to decide case objectively and fairly. So, and it's specifically about place contracts. And as you know, if you flip through the internet and search through news, you will find, unfortunately, in Malaysia and even in this region generally, football players don't get paid, which is horrendous for a professional player, because that's your rice bowl, So that's what the NDRC is for, to step in to stop that from happening, and hopefully, if I don't hear any cases, I would think it's good. It means players are getting paid and no dispute. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. I think to a certain extent, a lot of dispute resolution mechanisms are sort of insurance. It's there so that if it need be, it's there for us to be utilized. But if it's not there, then we hope things are going smoothly.
Yeah.
Following that, in 2020, you were also appointed to be part of the advisory panel of experts by the Ministry of Youth and Sport. Can you share with us a little bit about this experience and whether it has expanded your area of practice to involve sport policies and such?
Yeah, thank you. I must say, when I first received that letter, I thought it was a hoax from the ministry, because in my years of practice, I've never heard of such a panel. But I understand the then Minister of Youth and Sports, Dato' Rizal, he likes to have this, and he will help his ministry in work. So he has now moved on to the Ministry of Housing, and he has actually created the same panel at the ministry. So at KBS, Kementerian Belia dan Sukan, we call it KBS, this panel has a lot of people in there. And I think I am the only lawyer for now. I understand that there are a few more lawyers coming in eventually if this panel is continued by the current minister. There's a new Again lah, the same problem with change government, so change minister many times. Now my work there, all pro bono, purely pro bono. We advise the ministry, the minister personally. I recently was called upon. When I say recent, I'm talking about middle of last year. We called upon the minister to assist him in an ongoing conflict involving one of our national sports organization, which was deemed to be removed from a regional organization. So we had to advise the minister what to do with the current sports national federation in Malaysia. So we also advised them on the establishment of the anti-doping agency. I understand now Adamas have engaged lawyers from the Sports Lawyers Association of Malaysia, SLAM. They're giving advice. I don't know whether it's pro bono, but it's advice. So we were the lawyers in the early days advising the minister on that. So it's all pro bono, advising the government on policies, whatever is for the country. So far, it's been that. The new minister took over. I've only been called once on a particular policy matter in sports, but other than that, no, nothing else.
I think that's a very interesting new perspective when it comes to policy, because a lot of the time advisory is on their rights and their interests, but it's good to know that there's work being done to advise the government itself on how best to look, on how best to
Yeah. In fact, I would like to also say that previously my team and I, my colleagues and I, we were advising the former sports minister, YB Said Sadek, on the esports blueprint, also done on pro bono. We were helping the blueprint for esports in Malaysia. So that was also interesting because we could help to form and shape the policy of the country. And that was nice. I like doing that. It gave me a chance to, help our country to be better, blah, blah, blah. So that was nice. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing both your experience with us and your respective work. We really only skimmed the very top of your experience as sports counsels. I'm sure if this interview could go on for another hour, there's so much more to delve into. But our next question is, do you have a particular experience or a particular memory that stands out to you in your years of practice as a sports counsel? Something that might have changed your perspective or changed your way of practice as a lawyer and as a counsel? Richard, I think we can start with you.
Okay. Thanks. I've been very lucky to go through quite a number of interesting experiences. I never started my career as a sports lawyer, Naira. I was heavily involved in litigation. And then about, now I can say 10 years ago, my colleagues and I were discussing sports matters. And I'm a sports freak. I love sports. On our local TV, I only watch sports. I don't watch anything else but sports. Even when I go out, I always wear football shirts, badminton shirts. I'm a sports guy lah. So when this sports matter came to me, I realized that our Malaysian sports agreements and whatnot were very substandard, and I wanted to do things better. So that's how I got involved 10 years ago. So that's the first level of game-changing experience. But over the years, you help athletes who got tested positive but no money to help, associations which need lawyers but they have no money to pay. But recently, about 1-2 years ago, we were helping a esports streamer who was heckled on live stream, and she was body shamed, which is a terrible thing going on the internet the last few years. And she came to us asking for help. We screenshot the comments made by this perpetrator. We found out it's a he, hunted him down, got him, and then we sent a letter of demand. And I even remembered shooting a video on my handphone and then sending it to him through the Facebook Messenger and telling him, I'm Richard Wee, I'm the lawyer for this person. You take down this statement or else we'll come after you. in both in English and Malay, and we did it on pro bono. And the guy eventually withdrew and apologized to our client. And then what she said to me after that really vibrated in my career, because he said, "No, Mr. Richard, thank you. Nobody else will bother about us because we are just streamers." And then she offered to pay. I said, "Never mind. It's just our help." And she's happily streaming now, much happier. And I think people are now scared afraid to attack her on the internet because the news went out that she got a lawyer to go after them. And I felt that at least we could protect the people who are weak, who are perceived to be weak, and give the opportunity for the industry to grow. That incident until now, it's in my mind. It felt good, and I would like to do it again if I have a chance to help again. That's the kind of things which I wouldn't say change or game changer in my career, but shape the way I look at things, Nadira, and then also learn to understand even more better the trials and tribulations that the sports people or esports people go through.
Thank you for sharing such a meaningful experience with us. I think we all have these moments in our lives that definitely create and garner a bit more empathy in how we conduct our work as well. Susanah, do you want to share with us any experiences that might have changed your perspective or how you practice?
I know this sounds really cheesy, but I became a lawyer because I generally wanted to help people, and that's why I never really had an interest in corporate law. Because to me, companies and all have the resources, have the money. And so back even when I was doing general litigation, I had no issues doing pro bono cases, especially I have a soft spot for family law. So, I do, even now, the only area of practice that is outside sports that I will touch is family law. And that's also only on a solely pro bono basis. Like if you really cannot afford it, then I will take on the thing for you, the case for you. But if not, I generally don't do any more Malaysian law kind of things. So I similarly with Richard, the experiences that touches me the most is actually helping individuals who cannot afford it, because then you know that you are actually making a difference versus, I mean, it is, we cannot deny the fact that, you need money and all, and, paying clients are great. But being able to make a difference to someone who cannot afford it is something that that sits well in me, like with Richard also. So yeah, I can't exactly say if it changes the way I practice, because I've always been more inclined to practice in a way that I can just help people. But I would say that it definitely opens my eyes and make me realize that, even some sports people, they may appear to, people think that they are well paid or whatnot, but when you really talk to them, you realize that it's actually not a lot that they're getting. So yeah, and the amount that they put in, and their career as an athlete is pretty short. So yeah, I didn't really answer your question, but that's
I think it answered.
I think you did. You did. Yeah. You said it very well. I like it. Yeah.
I think, especially coming from an arbitral institution, a lot of the times we engage with big corporations as parties, very big firms as well. We tend to forget that the small players also need the representation, also need to be looked out for. And it's very reassuring to know that we have a whole industry of lawyers who are more than willing to look out for these small players and represent them and provide the assistance and legal aid where needed. I think we have come to our last question. So, and the last question is, as a final question, what piece of advice would you give to young aspiring lawyers or even law students who are interested in getting into the sports law industry? I think we can start with Susanna on this one.
I would definitely tell them to just approach sports bodies, associations, whatever, get an internship there. Just try to be involved first, make yourself known to them, and hopefully, a way will be open for you. But yeah, that's all that I have. I was just really lucky to have someone, to have James take me under his wings, and that's why he literally opened the door for me. And yeah, and I've met with really good supportive mentors along the way. So that was how I got into the industry.
Richard, advice on budding lawyers?
Yeah. Thank you. I think Susanna's one is 100% on point. You do need to get involved in sports as soon as you can if you're interested in this area. Internship is a fantastic platform for you to explore. And if I can add a layer to what Susanna said, that of course inherent in there, you need to know the law lah. And one thing about sports, there's no one penal code for everything, rules of court for everything. Football rules have different, BWF rules will have different. So, for example, if you deal with athletics, in the arbitration hearing, the standard of proof is on balanced probability or beyond reasonable doubt, but on comfortable satisfaction. So you need to know that, for athletes, is under the standard of proof is comfortable satisfaction. But for BWF, recently, they about 3 years ago, they prosecuted two local players for allegation of match fixing. Now it's no more allegation, it's proven. And the standard of proof of the case was on the balance of probabilities. So different sports have their own standard of proof, for example, but the concept, the ideas of law are similar. What you studied in criminal law and constitutional law can apply in sports, except different sports have different standards. So that is important. In terms of building network, like Susanna has built a very effective network of assisting arbitration for sports. Personally, I always recommend Susanna when people ask me about sports arbitration. There's this lady, Susanna. So it's like even we lawyers, we recognize her expertise. So like for me, my network, I've been unexpectedly I got dragged into the government, and now we are assisting the government. But we know people at all sports association, get to know them, make friends with them. Of course, knowing them as a friend is one thing, but you need to know your area. If you don't know your law, they won't be impressed with us. So it's important for you to always keep abreast. As for me, I remember in 2012 when I decided I want to do sports law lah. So I went to buy a book, a few books. In fact, I have about 7 books now in my library just on sports. Attend a few webinars. I was very lucky. I happened to be in London in 2014 for work, and there was somebody giving a seminar on sports law. So I literally paid, sat at the back and listened just to learn and observe. And then because in Europe and in America, sports law is very advanced. So advanced that we have ranking companies, law ranking companies. As you know, the few companies out there, ranking law firms. They have a category ranking sports lawyers in, for example, in England. So that's how advanced they are. So why not learn from them? Because they've been there, done it, gone through it. So I went to learn from there. So these are the things. You must always continue learning. So now, in a way, I've more or less been doing sports for about 10 years. For the record, Nadira, sports is not my only area. I do other areas. Everyone assume that I only do sports. Actually, no, we do other areas, company, employment, blah, 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 fintech. But for sports, it's about now almost 10 years now. But I never stopped learning lah. Recently I found a sports law book from US, and we ordered it because I'm still hard copy guy. I don't really like the soft copy version. So I'm waiting for the book to come because the book has a new chapter on sports marketing pertaining to influencers. How do you regulate influencers who carry a brand into a sports event, but that event doesn't recognize that brand? So, for example, some Olympics event, they recognize brand X. So all the players are wearing brand X. Then brand ABC invites Susanah and Richard because we have 1 million people following our Instagram. So we are wearing brand ABC every day, wearing the selfie ABC at the event. So is that legal? Is that illegal? So this book had this chapter, so I want to read it. For example, I want to know how they deal with it. Because influencers are getting more and more prominent in Malaysia, TikTok, YouTube, and of course, Instagram and Facebook, even Twitter to some extent. So always continue learning, ladies and gentlemen. Don't stop learning. Don't stop understanding new things. Don't be afraid to try new things. Once your basics of rules and laws for sports are there, then you continue adding layer and layer and layer to it. And then over time, you'll be good. You'll be good. You'll be steady. So, but of course, you need help. Look for people like Susanah and I. There are also many lawyers in the Sports Law Association of Malaysia, SLAM. Many of them are very, very experienced lawyers. You can always go to them and ask for advice. I understand the president, for example, she like to share her knowledge and all that. So go and look for SLAM. They will be able to help.
Thank you so much to both Susanah and Richard. I think the takeaway from today's conversation is that being a lawyer in any industry is a continuous process of learning, and it always starts with your first internship. A lot of the time that opens the door for a lot of opportunities. Again, thank you both so much for joining us today, and thank you to everyone who tuned into today's interview and today's conversation with Richard and Susanah. Thank you once again from the AIAC, and we're happy to have you on board. And that's it for today's interview.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nadira.
Good
luck to everybody, and thank you for tuning in to watch this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, bye.